Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Tuesday. I can't believe how quick this week is going because yesterday was a holiday, but it was also a great show. So welcome to Make It Make Sense. If you missed yesterday's Make It Make Sense, where we were having part 2 of making mental health make sense with Dr. Tama Bryant Davis, then please check out the show in my feed on Instagram and on my feed in Facebook. It was on my Facebook page, my public Facebook page. It was a fantastic, helpful, informative, inspiring show with information that we all need, just how to deal with the trauma of this never-ending pandemic and how to look out for signs of trauma, depression, in ourselves and in others, and then some sources for help once we identify it. So please go look at that show and share it. And we are here today with another show of Make It Make Sense. And our pledge to you, as I say every day, is we are dialing down the noise, the rhetoric, the bickering, and bringing you the truth. Bringing you fact-driven, data-driven information and commentary so that you can have the tools that you need to make informed decisions. So I am excited that we are unbelievably already in our third week of the show, and we have talked about any number of topics already. And today we're going to be talking law with someone who knows something about the law, and a perfect day for her to be coming on because we just, as many of you know, got a verdict about 39 minutes ago in the hate crime trial for the McMichaels and for Roddy Bryant. So with that guilty, there is plenty for us to discuss. My esteemed guest today is State's Attorney for Prince George's County, Aisha Braveboy, and in her role as State's Attorney, she is responsible for safety and security for what I think now is over 900,000 citizens in Prince George's County. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that she is a graduate of the Howard University School of Law. So, you guys know I can't leave. Got to get the important stuff in from the top. But if you would just put some hearts on the screen and please welcome State's Attorney Braveboy. Hi there.
Hi, it's great to see you, my fellow Bisonette.
HU.
You know.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for being willing to do this. And our day was fortuitous, right? We didn't know that we'd be getting this verdict today, but I do want to talk about that and so many other things. I last week had on the show a dear friend and colleague of mine, Yodi Twelde, who has her show Making the Case on BNC. And one of the things that we were talking about was the manner in which people in our community and in the nation who are progressive, liberal-minded view the role of prosecutors, view the necessity or lack thereof for good prosecutors, right, in order for the justice system to work. And she and I often talk about the broad discretion that is in the prosecutor's arm and how we have to have people of conscience in those roles. And we talked about it again last week. And I know that you were one such person. So I am just personally thankful that you are able to take time out of what I know is a busy schedule in order to talk with us. But up front, I want to know what's your take on the verdict that we just got in the McMichaels and Bryant trial. The jury has found in the federal hate crimes trial that they are guilty on all counts.
Well, it was a correct verdict. I think that's what we do know, and that our legal system sometimes gets it right. I know that oftentimes we hear criticisms of our legal system, criticisms of prosecutors and juries. But I think what we have to do is recognize that the system is not perfect. I though I do believe it's the best in the world, and that it is our job to continue to perfect it. And that's why we practice law. The practice is about perfection. It's not perfect. It's about trying to reach perfection. And in this instance, prosecutors attempted to achieve justice, and so I think that's what happened today. It was a just and right and correct verdict.
Well, I don't know if you got to see the press conference, but before the trial even started, there was a plea deal that was in the works
Yeah.
that Kristen Clark, who another dear colleague, sister friend, I'm so thankful to see her in that role as the head of the civil division, first Black woman to ever head the civil division for the Department of Justice. And the prosecutors had worked a deal that would be 30 years in a federal prison without the opportunity, without the ability to appeal. And they would have to serve those before their state sentences. And the family did not want that deal. Specifically, Ahmaud Arbery's mom did not want that deal. And today, after the verdicts, Attorney Crump, who's been on with us twice already on my show, was thanking the Department of Justice and thanking Kristen Clark for the work that they did. And Wanda Cooper says, uh-uh. So when she gets up there, she says that she did not want that the deal, and they were going to take a plea regarding the life of her son, and that she begged them to not accept it, that she talked to Kristen Clark herself and asked them not to accept it. And the only reason that they have a verdict is because the family members got up in front of the judge and begged. And I'm kind of wondering what your thoughts are about this, because I think sometimes people don't understand the friction. Sometimes people think, first of all, that as prosecutors, the prosecutor, whether federal or state, work for the victims' families, as opposed to
Correct.
for the government, working for us as the people of the government. And then second, I think maybe people don't understand the friction between what the family wants and the obligation of the DOJ, or in your instance, your case of the state's attorney's office,
Absolutely.
to meet justice based on the available facts and get the best deal that they can for the people. So any thoughts that you have?
You're absolutely right. It sometimes there is that friction between the victim or next of kin in this type of case and what the prosecutor's office has to do, because we have to weigh many factors, including the strength of the evidence. We also have to look at, whether or not we believe that we can convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt on all counts. And so while we may think that we would get a favorable verdict on certain counts, we may be unsure on other counts. And our goal is to achieve justice. And if we believe that the best way to achieve justice is through a plea negotiation and an agreement, then that is what we're going to pursue. Our obligation is to keep the family informed. We have something in Maryland, I'm sure it's in other states too, called the Victim's Bill of Rights. And that is the obligation of the state to keep the victim engaged and informed in every stage and step of a prosecution. But that does not mean, and while they weigh in, on a plea deal potentially, or a recommendation for sentences and things like that, that does not mean that the prosecutor is obligated to pursue what the victim or next of kin is asking for. The goal of the prosecutor is to pursue justice in the best way, and it is that prosecutor who has the training and experience and understands the full case to make a just and fair decision and a right decision. So sometimes there is that friction, but again, it's our system. It's not perfect, but it's the one we have.
Absolutely. Certainly not perfect. And you've been doing some work, tremendous work, I think, in looking at some of the policies that you have worked to correct and change during your tenure. And I wanted to start really where I think many people who come on here raise concerns. And one of the first ones for me is over incarceration and disproportionate sentencing. And I know that that is, it's a nationwide issue, and we see over incarceration of Black and brown folks and disproportionate sentencing of Black and brown folks. And we've seen it in Maryland, like we've seen it in many other states. What is the status of that in Prince George's County, where you are overseeing the prosecutions, and what, if anything, have you done to correct it?
Absolutely. Well, I think justice does not end at a sentence. Justice continues. We have post-conviction motions that get filed routinely. And so the prosecutor's office is responsible for responding to those motions and determining what the position of the state is going to be. And so when I looked at that process, I looked at an opportunity for us to review lengthy, unfair sentences. The first group of individuals I looked at were a group called juvenile lifers, those who were convicted of a serious crime, but they were convicted when they committed the crime at a very young age, 16, 17. They've spent 20, 30 some years in prison, and they are fully reformed, rehabilitated, but they are still inmates in our prison. And I thought that we needed to review those sentences. We didn't actually at that time have really a real mechanism for reviewing them, that the court had to respect, essentially, that the court had to hear these reviews or motions for reconsideration. They were not obligated to, but we were able to work with what I think is one of the best benches in the country. Again, no one's perfect. My office isn't perfect. The bench isn't perfect, but we attempt to do things that we think are in the best interest of justice. And so we were able to work with our bench to have a number of juvenile lifers, their sentences reconsidered, and many of them were released at the time, even before we passed the Juvenile Restoration Act at the state level, which gave all juveniles the ability to request a review of their sentence after spending 20 years or more in prison. And so we thought that was a really important tool that we were able to use here in the county, because over 80% of those convicted and sentenced as juveniles to life are Black in the state of Maryland. Moreover, in the state of Maryland, we looked at the statistics. The Justice Policy Institute did a really in-depth study into Maryland prisons. 70% of those who are in prison are Black. 70%. Blacks make up roughly 30% of the state, but 70% of the prison population. And if you look at those who are sentenced as young people, those who are under the age of 25, who are sentenced for 20 years or more, 10 years or more, really, over 80% of those are Black individuals. So what we recognize is that there was a disproportionate representation of Black people in our prisons serving the longest sentences at very early ages. And so while again, my job as a prosecutor is to protect people, a large part of what we do is prosecute, and we do that very, very well here. The other part we have to do is make sure that the system is fair and is working for everyone equally. And so we have to have an equal and fair system of justice as well. And if that means that we need to review sentences, provide opportunities for restoration and second chances, that's what we're going to do, and that's what we've done.
Now, is that through the Conviction and Sentencing Integrity Unit?
Yeah.
The one that's looking at, and is it just juvenile sentences, or are you looking at others?
No, we started really looking at primarily juvenile sentences because those were the most obvious ones to reconsider, because we're talking about people who were essentially children when they were convicted. And the Supreme Court and our Court of Appeals in Maryland have recognized and distinguished children, juveniles, from adults. Science, and you probably have talked about this on your show before, but science tells us that an individual's brain does not fully develop until the age of about 25, 26, when an individual's in their mid-20s, which means at 15, 16, 17, when they can be charged as adults, they certainly don't have the mental capacity as adults.
Well, and
And
explain that for me. I hate to interrupt you, but
oh, sure.
ever since my days as a public defender up until this current day, I do not understand it. How is it that prosecutors' office justify the charging of individuals who are 15, 16, 17, who we know do not have, I mean, they don't have the finished frontal lobe development. You know, we finished developing it. That's one of the last things to get developed in us. And then it starts going when
Yeah.
getting toward the senior years. So if we know
Yeah.
that and that it affects decision making, then what is the justification for doing that?
Yeah. So I can tell you in the state of Maryland, um, there are certain charges for which if you are 14 or older, you are automatically by law charged as an adult. So any charge that carries a life sentence, which includes murder and first degree murder and first degree rape. Those are crimes for which a 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old will be charged by law. The initial charge will be an adult charge. And if you are 16 and you are charged with a crime, certain crimes of violence, especially those using handgun like robbery or carjacking, by law, you are initially charged by police as an adult. And then there's a process called the waiver process where defense attorneys will request that the juvenile be waived down, quote unquote, down to juvenile court. But by law in Maryland, if you commit certain offenses and you're a certain age, you will be charged as an adult. That issue is actually the subject of a debate right now in Annapolis. Senator Jill Carter, who was a former, I believe, public defender, certainly a defense attorney, has a bill that would change that charging process. And so juveniles would not start out in adult court with adult charges. But again, that is something that's unfortunate. I'm sorry.
I don't understand the basis. That's what I'm saying. I got to be honest about it. It's like
yeah,
because the seriousness of the charge to me is not the same thing as capacity.
Yeah, we're not going to have a disagreement there. I'm just talking to you about what the law states. The law in Maryland states that if you are 14 charged with a crime that carries a life sentence, you will be charged by police as an adult. That is just the law. If you are charged with a crime of violence and you are 16, certain crimes of violence, you are 16, you are going to be charged as an adult. That's what the law said. That's why the legislature is so important, because the legislature really does control policy. You know, we are law enforcement, right? And so we enforce laws set through our legislative process to determine how our society is going to work, what our values are, what we will respect in terms of how we treat people in the criminal justice system. And so that is why that is the subject of a pretty significant debate this year. And that question is coming out. Why are we charging, young people at this age as adults for these types of offenses when we know that the science has us in a different direction at this point? So I don't disagree with you. You have no argument from me. I'm just telling you what the law currently.
No, absolutely. And I think that it's important for people who are watching, because the other thing that Yodi and I talked about last week is, are we voting? Because we're saying elections don't matter. We're showing up for federal elections. We're not showing up for our local and state elections. But you guys who are watching right now, this is your son. This is my son. This is whomever who makes a bad decision on a night. And we're thinking that what these state legislators do don't directly affect us, and it's in our homes. It's not even at our front door. It's in every home. And so that's why I think it's so important, one, the job you do in recognizing areas where you can make changes, but also for us to recognize what your limitations are, because you are bound to enforce the laws as they are on the books. But I want to talk about something else. I saw in when I was reading some information about you that you've made some changes where no cash bail, where cash bail is concerned. And that's obviously another one that directly affects Black folks, directly affects poor folks. Can you explain what the law was and what you've changed?
Well, the law is the law. Cash bail is permissible and permitted in the state of Maryland. However, I have the discretion in my office on how we operate. And so I have instructed my prosecutors to not request cash bail as a condition of pretrial release. If we believe that someone is a danger to our community or to their victim, then we will request that that individual be held without bond. But if we believe that the person can be safely in the community, money should not be the reason why they stay in prison. We have a robust pretrial system in Prince George's County where if we think individuals may be at a slightly elevated risk, we can ask for electronic monitoring that is not paid for by the defendant, but that is paid for by the county. We also have other levels of pretrial supervision where individuals can just do check-ins or they may have to attend certain classes in order to meet their pretrial, responsibilities or conditions. But again, money should not be a determining factor. And so, again, the courts can do what they want to do. They have a discretion, but we have a commission system, which means that your initial appearance is actually not before a judge, it's before a commissioner. And that commissioner can set a bail, that commissioner can release an individual, or they can hold them over until there is a bond review the following day or the following business day. Again, we can't control what they do, but we can control what we do. And as a result, we're seeing fewer and fewer people who are in jail simply because they cannot pay the bond. And I think that's a good step in the right direction for our community.
Absolutely. And I hope everybody who's listening and who shares it sees what we're saying when, depending on who is in this office, the vast amount of power and discretion that can be used for our good. If we are taking a vested interest in who we put in office. And so finally, I wanted to talk about the Public Integrity Unit, which it's my understanding it oversees, or you're taking a look at police misconduct, excessive cases. I mean, we talk about a lot of those cases here, just even in the past 2 weeks. I think we've talked about 5 different cases, and from Floyd to a couple of cases that I am consulting on in Texas, and we are seeing across the country that whether it's the prosecutor's office or whether it's the police department itself, there just simply has not been enough oversight of what's happening in real time on the streets and the manner in which those things are being reported in after action reports and et cetera. So can you just explain what you assess it to be in Prince George's County and what's being done about it?
Sure. I created a standalone public integrity unit. And the individuals who work in that unit really don't prosecute other cases. So they're really solely focused on public corruption. So it's not just police, but it's also other government officials, whether they're elected or appointed or just work for the government. Certainly police officers, anyone in public safety, including firefighters. In fact, a couple of years ago, we indicted several firefighters or volunteer firefighters for attempting to set fires for enjoyment purposes, which was ridiculous. But the primary, work we have done is around police accountability. We released a do not call list. This is a list of officers who we absolutely will not call to testify on behalf of the state. Again, I can't control who the department hires, but I can control who speaks on behalf of the state in our cases. We also have prosecuted a number of county officers and municipal officers. So we have a county that is made up of about 26 municipalities, and all of them have police departments. And so we work with a lot of different law enforcement agencies. We're responsible for holding everyone accountable. We've had, I think, maybe around 17 or 18 indictments so far involving officers. We've only had about 2 trials move forward because of COVID. Well, actually, I would say we've had 3 trials move forward because of COVID. We have been successful in all of those trials. Those charges range from, assault to sexual assault, where an officer actually sexually assaulted another officer, which was just a horrific situation, but we were able to achieve justice for that officer, as well as an officer who shot at a fleeing vehicle. I mean, that is pretty much a no-no. You know that, Ms. Pressley. We had to hold the officer accountable, and we were able to do so. So we have several other trials coming up, including one for second-degree murder. That trial should start either towards the end of this year or early next year. But again, COVID has had a real impact on the number of cases we've been able to try over the last couple of years, but we are committed to those cases and committed to seeking justice.
We are almost out of time, State's Attorney Braveboy, but I want to give you an opportunity. If there are just action items or things that as citizens, people who are watching who live in your county, or even that they can do in their own counties that can assist the work of your office, what is it that they can do to be involved?
We have every month, we host what's called Community in the Courthouse as an opportunity for us to talk about the work that we're doing and also to hear from our community, because we want our community to be a part of the justice system. And we want to hear from them. We want to make sure that they understand what we're doing and that they feel that justice, right? Can't just say we're responsible for the justice system and not care about how people feel about the system that you're responsible for. So we want to get that feedback from them. So we have monthly meetings. We also, reach out to the community. We attend events. So we really want them to invite me out to their community meetings and, anywhere that they think that it would be great for the state's attorney's office to be present. We will be. We can be reached on social media at PGSAO News. That's at PGSAO News. And in fact, we have a great program tomorrow evening. It's our Black History Month Community in the Courthouse program, featuring a lot of amazing speakers, including the first Black state's attorney for Prince George's County, former federal judge Alexander Williams, as well as Carlos Moore, as well as Carlos Moore, who is the president of the National Bar Association, Daryl Barnes, who's the chair of the Legislative Black Caucus. We have, just amazing speakers. I'll be on the panel as well. Pat Lawson-Hughes will be moderating, and I'm really excited about it.
Oh, that's a powerhouse right there. I hear nothing but good stuff. That's great. All people who I personally support also. So, well, guys, please participate as State's Attorney Braveboy has just said, and please follow if you're not following, and look up the things that they're doing and follow along. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this, and you are welcome back here anytime. If there's any way, we don't want to be talking about what's going on in the nation and in the world and not be talking about what's going on right in our own backyard. So thank you.
Absolutely. And if I could just say one more thing, as we are true HU sisters. We both decided on the gold bangles today, so I just wanted to point that out.
Bison United.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Enjoy your day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for joining in. I appreciate it as always. I hope that you found this information informative. As you know, we've had several conversations just over the past couple of weeks about the importance of having prosecutors of conscience, of having Black folks representing us in every area, not just the side that we think we're supposed to be on. So please support the work of these sisters. And when you see them doing things like charging police officers and investigating judges, back them up. They need the support so that they know the community supports the things that they're doing. So this, same as every other show, will be posted later today. Please share and share the information that you gained from it. If there was something that you learned today that struck you, then tweet about it, tag me at Monique Pressley, hashtag the show, make it make sense, so that people can know that we're here in a growing, vibrant community of our own. If you'd like to support the work that we're doing, please go to my bio, to the link tree. There's multiple ways that you can support our show and support this work there. Thank you so much for joining. I will be back. Great show tomorrow, noon. Eastern Standard Time. And I'll see you then.